not addressing your emotions will make you feel absence.
In psychology, they say don't let the emotions control you, you control your emotions. Mostly, it's like people go from this messy world to the monastery life. What shocked you the most when you re entered the modern world?
Oh God, I still remember that first day when I came out of the temple and I got to see a very big city. Every day, it was a struggle and a fight every day. Everyone's like, "Arey, once in a while late night is fine. Arey, once in a while have a drink, it's fine." But I was like, no. We all live in duality, externally, internally also. The light and dark force, like the yin and yang in Chinese philosophy. Once you flip that, when the dark starts taking over, is where you will be clouded and clogged into something which is going to be a very powerful force, which will bring you down, which will make you blind. And once you're blind, and that will be your downfall in life. हमारा दिमाग जो है, it's like a popcorn machine. Popcorn में कैसे बनते रहते popcorn. So thoughts are exactly the same, but which thought you take is obviously going to become big in your head. But take that thought, address it, see it, observe it, accept it, and let it pass by.
Sometimes life can be very messy for people. How does a person at that point think of stillness or think of higher power, or how do you really get that calmness within you?
I personally see it more like.
So, Harsh, people assume that spiritual discipline dissolves all inner conflict. People think if they've been a part of a program that talks about or teaches spiritual discipline, it will resolve all their inner conflicts, all their inner patterns, all their childhood traumas. I know that you have been in that space for 5.5 years, when you were training in a discipline yourself. What, according to you, does not disappear?
Obviously, my journey for 5.5 years has been very regimented and very disciplined and different. Where there is consistency in the practice, everything is obviously flowing. But you hit stagnation, the time you are not consistent, and also your base nature never changes. You're always evolving from your base nature. If you see characteristics of any human being, any individual, you, me, I, everybody around here, everyone's base nature is already set. But how you are sprouting, growing that sapling, growing into a plant is about nurturing every day of your life consistently. So I think the only thing that remains stagnant and same is your base nature. But how you evolve by being in the practice of it is how you will fruitify in life, I think. Yeah.
That's so true, what you said, that your basic, baseline doesn't really change. So tell me, according to you, if someone's base is a bad seed, like use an example of plants, I'll go by that. You're a bad seed or a good seed, let's say from the get-go, and all the work is done on top. Do you think that can change?
See, I personally have a very different approach and philosophy when it comes to the seed concept. I think before you're planting any seed, you can't firstly say it's a good seed or a bad seed. I think it's important to identify the right soil where you're going to be sowing that seed. So once you understand where you need to sow that seed, is where you know whether it's going to turn out to be a good seed or a bad seed. So before we go into seeds and plants and fruits, let's understand the most basic thing, that's the soil. And that's where everything emerges from, everything just, evolves from there. Whether it's the living beings, whether it's anything and everything, I think. I don't need to summify, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So I was saying it in context of, how people say, she's just a bad seed or he's just a good seed, so he's always going to be. That's why I was talking about base. And I'm not talking about seeds, I'm talking about people. And what you mean by soil, my understanding is the environment. So I think definitely that shapes us. That completely changes how anybody can be. So if I put you in an environment, let's say that was toxic growing up, and I put you in an environment that was very happy and full of abundance, you will turn out differently. You as Harsh will turn out differently in both the environments. The same seed, right? Okay. Now, my question was, when you go into a spiritual discipline regime, do some characteristics not change ever?
Yeah, I mean, it always is carried with you, right? I hope you mean by when you're in the spiritual practice, Correct. In the spiritual. I think it always is just there with you. It's just there with you. I think it just grows from where you are and what you've cultivated. For example, you gave a very nice example. If Hurssh Verma today gets put in a toxic environment, but my spiritual practice is something which will be a shield and an armor around me. But if I was not introduced or acquainted to this whole monk life or the whole practice of the spiritual aspect, then I would just be absorbing and dissolving all the negativity that's accumulating around my environment, and that's who I would be shaping up into. So I feel like everything just stays when you're in the practice of it. So spirituality is nothing but just awareness of yourself, and like in our Shaolin practice, awareness of yourself comes awareness of your breath. So that's where I hope I answered your question, right?
Can discipline become a socially acceptable way to avoid emotions?
So I think spiritual discipline does not have any correlation to emotions, but yes, it does make you connect to all your emotions, because everything, when you're in the spiritual practice of anything that you're doing, whatever practice of school of practice that you take, it gets you to understand every emotion that you are cultivated of, you're made of. So whether it's your anger, your love, your jealousy, everything, and how you are addressing them, how you're handling them is where you're like the self mastery, right? That's why monks are called monks, because there is self mastery. So I feel that when there is spiritual practice, going on in life, emotions are already addressed, and emotions are very much in your control.
You went at a particular age where I'm sure you had a basic understanding of yourself, of your emotions, of your way of being. What did you understand about yourself after going into the spiritual practice, which you thought you must change, and what you thought couldn't change?
There were definitely a lot of things, because I was living. So there are three layers, the way I see, life of an individual. I think I was living from a very surface layer of my life, and then there is like the epidermis, and then there is like the most base layer of you. Um, I definitely got to understand who I am and what I'm supposed to do, and walking the path uh, of dharma, and doing my karma is what I was supposed to be doing, and that's what every individual is supposed to do. Hence I feel, for me, I got awareness of my true self, of my practice, who I'm actually supposed to be and supposed to do. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in life. And then you can call it as if you're finding your purpose. You can say it's reaching a goal or whatever you want to do. But it's what cultivated me and made me understand who I am. So that's what it got awareness into me with the spiritual practice. And it got me a lot of resilience and discipline and etc. All the everything that happens to a Shaolin warrior monk. But what it really, really what I got away from was from of my ego. I think we are just so fabricated and coiled with so much of our ego, because there are three layers of ego as well. So how you get into the layer of your super ego, which is getting you to the morality of your life. There is obviously a science angle to this as well. So I got to live a very astound moral life forward and after my monk journey, for sure.
Can you explain what you thought of ego before you went in, your understanding of ego, and then mastering it?
Yes, definitely. Ego is something where I think there is a lot of I at the forefront, where you're always keeping yourself first, where you're always proud of what you're doing. There is pride. There's too much of I in everything that you do.
Everything is centered around you.
Everything is centered around you. You're very, very self-absorbed, self-obsessed. The minute you're liberated from that aspect is when you're completely free of the ego. And once you're free, you're just experiencing life from the eyes of an experiencer. So it comes to your third layer. It makes you go to your third layer, where you're rising from not having any kind of ego, but rising from the aspect of like you having moral grounds around you. Everything just seems so beautiful. Everything just feels so relaxed. For example, now I had a job of translation in the temple. I speak fluent Mandarin and Spanish, so there were a lot of foreigners who came. They only want to learn kung fu, kung fu, kung fu. Okay, amazing. Kung fu is great at Shaolin temple. But nobody had the approach of learning the culture, which is fine. But then I used to not look down upon them, but I used to not see them in good light. But then I understood. I was like, no, their intent is nice.
Yeah.
They're coming with the approach of purity. They're coming with the approach of wanting to learn something and gain something. And probably in that search and that hunt, it will make them realize, and which will make them feel liberated. So I got to understand myself while I was helping others at the same time.
Because I think even being in the practice or being in the discipline, one can think I'm above the rest, right? That
Yeah.
feeling can also come about very quickly. I'm above them, I'm superior. And not saying this to yourself, but somehow feeling it. Because you feel like you have got into this discipline, you think differently, you are not egoistic. But even this is a self ego, right? Where you think you're a little above everybody.
Right. So obviously, as a monk, we never had that mindset. But I think, how do you say it? Like if you by default or like a natural instinct.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It's human, right? To feel like
Yeah.
that.
So as a natural instinct, it comes like, oh my God, these guys are back again. They just want to do kung fu. You know, it used to be like, dude, they don't have anything. Any kind of
Substantial.
substantial way of approaching the knowledge, because Shaolin temple is a heritage property. Every structure, every corner in the temple is like gold. It's a gold mine. It's like knowledge everywhere. So that's where my instinct did come in. I was like, okay, now again they want to just do kung fu, kung fu, kung fu. But then I realized I just took a back seat and I started observing them. I became an observer. I was like, but their instinct is their intent is so nice that they want to learn kung fu. Then they don't know anything about it. I should be doing them. I should remove this layer of mine of having to be, I wouldn't say judgmental, but looking at them as something which would be kind of like oh, okay, like inferior kind of a thing, but never really thought bad about them or
Yeah,
for
yeah.
them.
I don't mean bad. I mean like
Yeah.
we look land up looking down a little bit.
Down a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But then I started changing my approach, and then I think that's where I felt more liberated and understanding that because even eventually we all are made up of love and compassion, right? And the most base nature of a Shaolin monk, of any monk or Shaolin monk, is in Chinese we say Sibei. So Sibei is compassion. So compassion is one of the core elements of a monk. So I think that started getting cultivated because I got a translation duty in the first 1.5 year itself, like after the first 1.5 year.
I sometimes feel like, and I could be completely wrong, but I sometimes feel like people who go into any sort of spiritual practice also might be doing, this is an assumption, emotional suppression, where they tell themselves that, let's say they come from a toxic family or they've come from an abused home or whatever their background would have been, they kind of want to say, I don't come from there and this has not happened to me, and today I'm going to go into this and become this person. But in the end, you can't run away. You have to heal where you come from, right? Can you explain the difference between inner mastery and emotional suppression?
Definitely. I have come across a lot of people like this myself, whether it's they're trying to, shield themselves by just getting involved and dissolved in some kind of practice and not addressing the core aspects of their inner being, stuff. So I feel the biggest difference would be, I can say for myself because I've helped a lot of people as well, but I speak about how my
Journey.
my change and my journey happened to me. Coming from a really, a very privileged background of, anything in life, like Bombay, we're from Jamnabai, Jew, this whole area. And then coming into and seeing the duality as a monk, right? And I was just always wondering that, what am I doing here? Okay, I had a purpose to go there to fix my leg, but then now I'm a monk. Now what? Just keep on learning. And then there was certain kind of, inner trauma, like there are a lot of practices called inner child healing. So there are certain things that I was not addressed internally. It was not just me doing Kung Fu movements throughout the day for 8, 10 hours a day. But I got to sit with myself. I got to sit in silence. I got to have an inner dialogue without having a voice to it. And that was the voice of my core. And that's where I started having a conversation that what is happening? How am I feeling? I just sat down in silence and I was having a dialogue with myself. I think people escape the fact that they don't want to sit in silence because they're going to be facing the demons which is inside of them. So that is a suppression which it comes, and then they go into hiding by taking away a practice or committing to a practice. But sitting in silence and having a dialogue with yourself internally, without any disturbance in your environment, is something which requires a lot of mastery and guts and courage, because you've got to be courageous in order to have a conversation with yourself.
Absolutely.
You can go tomorrow and have a conversation with our Shri Prime Minister, but to have a conversation and address certain things deeply internally is a brave act.
I completely agree. I have seen a lot of people who go into different sorts of spiritual practices and who go into a lot of daily chanting, and they'll talk about how it helps you and heals you. But a lot of them would not even look at the inner world and actually sitting with themselves. You'll see them using the word seva in all different formats, where they are, they are chanting or they're praying and they go to the temple and the rituals. But I think inner healing and really actually becoming, like emotional mastery is a completely different forum altogether. And I think that there's a stark difference, and I think people confuse the two. Emotional suppression, like, no, I don't feel this way. I'm going to go to God. I'm going to go to this temple. I'm going to go to this practice. I'm not saying don't do it. Do it. That may be helping you in some way or the other. But I think it's very important to emotionally, be naked with yourself. Yeah. So tell me, do you notice patterns that hid once inside you after discipline entered your life?
You mean the patterns are still hidden inside of me? I remember, like, before I went to the temple, I was a very hyperactive boy. Because I was been a professional athlete, so I was always high on energy and, running around. I think that pattern is still there, but I have gained a lot of stillness in me, I would say. Stillness comes very naturally to me because I think I'm in tune with my breath, so that just happens. But certain aspects of patterns that are there would be, I think, just the hyperactiveness is still there in me. But yeah, like a lot of different emotions where, how kids at that age are, where they are little bit of, the little anger comes out, frustration comes out if they don't get something, being stubborn. I think these all small things that shape my teenage area of my life all have taken like a backseat, and the rigidity. I think the monk life really opened up and showed me a very different duality and how life is supposed to be lived in a certain way. So yeah.
So I think common belief would be that once you have a spiritual identity, ego dies down. But according to me, it can be reshaped inside you. Can you explain how does ego reshape itself inside spiritual identities?
I feel there are, like we already established, there are different layers of egos. Spiritual identity definitely reshapes the ego and makes you go deeper within you to understand the moral grounds of your approach and prerogative towards life. I think that's the way it shapes you, where your instinct, where your base nature, second nature is all coming from the base of who you are, where you've connected with your core. There are a lot of practices that people out there also, I feel, where the ego keeps on rising and growing up, where they are not actually letting go of the first layer. It can come across as a pride, in a way of pride. It can come across a way of authority. It can come across a way of different ways of controlling people, leadership in certain way. And I think all is driven where people are driven by fear and caught from the fear angle. So I feel the spiritual aspect of your ego being shaped is where you are completely come to your third layer. You've come down to the third layer where your morality is operating you. You are not operating it. So yeah, that's the way I see it. Yeah.
Do you think there's a spiritual ego that's harder to confront than regular one? Because when someone's risen to a particular point or a particular place in the spiritual world, they're getting validation from millions of people. That would be so much harder to break than a regular ego of a regular guy.
Right. Both, both will definitely have a downfall eventually in life. Who goes first, who goes second is the second part of it. But I personally feel that when it comes to a person on the spiritual path has that ego, will eventually, the stronger the rise, the harder the fall, like we all know that. But in the spiritual aspect of it, it can actually flip you and take you to a very different dark side.
Yeah, can you explain that a little?
Definitely. I think because you're so in tune with yourself and suddenly you are switching your duality. So we all live in duality externally, internally also. So internally, when your duality is flipped, when there is not balance, like the yin and yang in Chinese philosophy, in Shaolin, we speak about yin and yang, the light and dark force internally, I think once you flip that, when the dark starts taking over without you being aware about it, is where you will be clouded and clogged into something which is going to be a very powerful force, which will bring you down, which will make you blind. And once you're blind, and that will be your downfall in life. I think that's what happens to a lot of spiritual beings. We don't want to name anyone, but you already know a lot of people who have been out there. when they went to such high heights of life, and then the dark side flipped, and because see what happened was they were not operating from the moral grounds.
Yeah.
The morality died in them. So if the moralities died, the ego rose, and then the dark side took over them, and then their downfall. Simple.
I think they themselves also forget the principles they were functioning on.
Yeah.
It's like you're teaching the basic principles to everybody, but then in day 100, you've reached such a place, you yourself have forgotten the 3 basic principles you were teaching.
Yeah.
It may happen, and I think that's also human, right? That's why I kind of feel like there is nothing called human gods, because we are still humans. I mean, you can achieve that place of what you said, where you are neutral, that place of being a monk where you see everybody as you and you as everybody, where you literally don't judge anybody. I'm sure you can reach that place. But in the end, everyone is still human. We all are human. And I think we tend to forget that when we see spiritual leaders and things like that. We start to think they've come from somewhere else and they're made up of somewhere else or something else and they'll function differently. But I don't think it's possible to. In the end, everyone is still human, right? Somewhere the human side comes in. And I think, like you said, you have to keep practicing to actually stay like that.
Yeah.
Consistency, like you mentioned at the beginning. That consistency goes away, you'll fall back into old patterns.
Yeah.
If I run every day for the next 10 years and I decide 3 months I'll take a break, probably it will be hard to go back to those 10 years, the same discipline I had. So anything that you walk away from, it can take away where you're going. So tell me the most uncomfortable truth you've had to face about yourself after becoming spiritually disciplined and spiritually aligned.
Non-attachment. That was the most uncomfortable truth that I think I would say I gained also. At the same time, I felt losses around me. So when you're non-attached, does not mean that you don't have any connection with your emotions or you don't operate from the area of love and compassion. Non-attachment is where nothing is owning you, nothing is driving you in life. You're not getting consumed, you're not being esteemed by things and people around you and an environment around you. So I think that's what got me mastery in a good way. But I also started losing a lot of people in and around my environment, which happened, I think, for the good. I don't think of it. It was sad, but I think this is one of the most important things that made me gain and lose, observe a lot of things around me. So non-attachment is something I cultivated as a practice, which made me liberated. And a lot of people use the term detachment, but I refrain from using the term detachment. I think detachment still makes you have fragments of attachment. So my approach is more of non-attachment. So there's something in Hindi we say asakti and anasakti. So non-attachment and attachment is the way I approach things. So obviously I love my parents, I love my partner, I love my cousins, my sister, my nephews. But there is something liberating about knowing that there is a reason why we all are here. There is a spiritual angle. There is a reason why we all are here.
Tell me about the spiritual angle.
Our time is temporary. Everybody knows this. It's just about acceptance, right? And we are spiritual beings experiencing human life. That's all. And the spiritual part of you, inside of you, the astral form, the causal form, it stays permanent. It just travel different spaces, dimensions, and it comes back according to your karma. And that's how everything is shaped. And that's the circle of life. So what life we live is a journey between birth and death.
Yeah, I think what you said is very true. We are so attached to, forget materialistic things, we are so attached to our relationships, right? Parents, children, relatives, friends, and they shape your life. That attachment also shapes your life in many ways. You'll do certain things because you're like, they shouldn't be upset. And you don't do certain things, you're like, no, it'll upset my parents, it'll upset my friends, it'll upset my partner. So kind of like your life is forming shape according to those attachments, unrealizingly even like subconsciously, sometimes you'll make choices based on your attachments. You may see it as, this is who I am. But in the end, it's because you're attached to certain things, certain people in your life. You want to make sure they are happy with you, so your decisions are based on that. And I think, like you use the word very correctly, non-attachment, it's a very hard place to reach. And if you do reach it, there does come a sense of loss also. When I was studying psychology, a few years ago, and when I really went deep into it, and then you start to really practice this, you are nobody, right? In the end, like you are so attached to this body, this job, this title, everything that's around you, the relationships you have, and the minute you start to non-attach and you say like it's a temporary time, you're here to just experience, not personalize every experience that is happening to you with you. That sense of loss also comes in, because then you don't feel how other people are feeling towards that relationship. You don't feel the need to enact every emotion that's coming towards that relationship. And I think that's a very difficult space to be in also, for other people to experience you. You may be feeling liberated because you're not, acting on every emotion that's coming, because you're able to dissipate it. But I think everybody else finds it. Did you feel like your family found it hard?
Oh, definitely. I think that was my biggest, the biggest fight was with my family, because when I told them that I want to go to China for my rehab, and then the whole, like, why China? And then when I told them that, oh, it's been 6 months now, I'm fixed, but I want to stay, I want to do this life and live this life as a monk. After 1 year, the Shaolin temple in China, they adopted me. So for them, it was a really big shock, right? And then when they saw my growth in that 5.5, 6 years, and how, because at that crucial age after graduation between 20 and 25, 26 is where someone's really, really, like growing, maturing, the adult phase. So I think I missed that few years, what my parents would observe me and see how I am turning out to be. But yeah, it was very difficult with them. They did have a lot of questions, but they, I feel, are still not in a lot of acceptance of the way I have turned out to be, but they are very happy how I approach life and how I see life and how I conduct my life, and how I am so strict about my discipline for myself, how I am very mission oriented, purpose oriented, and how I want to, make India mentally and physically fit. That's just my basic purpose. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
In close relationships, when does non-attachment start feeling like emotional absence?
I personally can relate to this because speaking from my own experience, I feel non-absence comes when you're not addressing the emotions, what you're supposed to be feeling in that particular moment, or whatever the situation, whether you feel love, whether you feel happiness, whether you feel sadness, anger, whatever. So when you're not truly addressing an emotion and not completely feeling it, that's where you obviously start suppressing it, because you're just like so drowned in the whole non-attachment part. That I don't feel anything. Like, we spoke about it initially, that I don't feel anything. I'm just going to operate like this, or nobody can hurt me. Nobody does anything to me. मुझे इससे कुछ फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता है. Stuff like that. I think that's where the emotional absence starts coming, and then you start feeling loss. You start having a big void internally. Because when you're not connected to your emotions, because like you said, we are humans eventually.
Yeah.
We are made up of those emotions. We are bound to feel those emotions. Even in non-attachment, you're supposed to be feeling those emotions. You can't not feel them. If you don't feel them, then you're not human.
Correct.
You can't be robotic. You can't be bionic. You are bound to feel those emotions. I feel emotions. Everybody, I think everyone who are like high supreme practitioners and Siddha gurus and Siddha, people out there in the spiritual path, they definitely do feel emotions. They definitely do have families. They definitely might have renounced and taken the path of brahmacharya, but still they do feel things. They do feel, because they have love towards their students. They have love towards the people who do seva. They have love towards, they're pure vegetarians, so they have love towards the animals around them. So emotions can never die. Yeah, it cannot. So I feel not addressing your emotions will make you feel absence.
So, can you explain the difference for people who are listening? What is it like to be indifferent, and what is it like to be actually non-attached in a happy way, where you're able to say, it's not like मुझे फर्क नहीं पड़ता, I'm not going to feel anything, but I understand this is how I'm feeling, but I don't have to succumb to those feelings. Can you explain the difference?
So people who are indifferent, who have no spiritual practice, for example, right? And people who have spiritual practice and are on the path of non-attachment. So people who are indifferent, like I've seen my friends, everybody around me, I see them, amazing people. What happens in that scenario where they are at, everything is controlling them, everything is driving them. They're getting consumed by everything. भले वो काम पे हो, भले वो घर में हो, किसी ने कुछ बोला घर पे, किसी ने काम पे ये टास्क कंप्लीट नहीं किया, boss ne chilla diya. Something like that happened and you're always triggered, something is happening and you're obviously losing your ground and you're just like haywire and stressed out, आपके cortisol levels बढ़ गए, सब कुछ हो गया. And somebody who's on the path of the spiritual path of non-attachment, how you're approaching things, that whole absorption and consumption changes differently because it's not defining you who you are.
Yeah.
Once you take that path, it's not necessary to take the spiritual path, but it's also important to understand that spiritual path does not mean a religious practice. Spiritual path means you are in tune and in connection with yourself.
Correct.
आप कंट्रोल में हो आपके इमोशंस के. तो आप वैसी सिचुएशन में वैसी बाधाएं आपके पास लाइफ में आती हैं, फॉर एग्जाम्पल काम पर आती है या घर पर आती है, एनी एडवर्सिटीज इन योर लाइफ, हाउ यू अप्रोच without your ground being shaken is what is going to define your non-attachment.
Absolutely. I think that's brilliantly explained. You gave that example of आपके ऊपर कोई चिल्लाता है and 99.9% of people will take it so personally, right? Let's say the cameraman walked in and then said something very rudely to you. One is a place of indifferent area, like, he's a cameraman, why is he talking to me like this, right? Superiority in certain sense. Then the approach can be, who is he to talk to me, say something back, right? Instant reaction means they were able to trigger you something so small. They were able to shake your ground with something so small by speaking to you a little rudely. Third would be how you said, where it doesn't shake your ground, where you're like, okay, this person comes from a certain mood. Probably, I don't know, the 10 things that have happened for that person to behave in a certain way, but it has nothing to do with me. If Shaolin wasn't sitting and somebody else was sitting and he has come and spoken, so it has nothing to do with you. It's not like Hurssh has to react because the cameraman spoke like that. I'm just giving a very random example.
Right. Also, I just want to add to what you said. It's not necessary somebody has a superiority complex and then they be like, "Arey, mujhe farak nahi padta hai." Somebody can also feel very sad and bad and start crying. That is the opposite part of it.
No, there can be many ways of reacting to the same situation.
Reaction to this. So it does not need to have one single approach where your ego is or your pride is hurt. It can also be like, आप पर ऐसे लग रहा है कि कोई दबाव कर रहा है. Somebody is making you feel suppressed. Somebody is making you feel low. Somebody is making you feel sad and unhappy. So there are a couple of ways of seeing it.
Yeah.
So I feel internally self-mastery by taking a spiritual path, which can be just basic meditation, breath work, simple. Nothing complicated, nothing, rocket science books or rocket science philosophy, spiritual books or any practice or any guru or baba, nothing like that. But once you have that, you will feel utmost liberation because once that whole that reaction dies, response comes. And once the response comes, you become a backbencher. That's what I call myself. And you start becoming the observer. आप आपके खुद की life की spectator बन जाते हो. You become the audience of your life. And everything that's going on, you find everything beautiful. Oh, ये भी है, ये भी अच्छा, ये भी बुरा, okay, ठीक है. हाँ, but emotions feel करना नहीं छोड़ना चाहिए. अगर आपको उस समय आपको रोना है तो रो, no problem. रो, खत्म करो और फिर you move ahead.
Address everything.
Addressing is the one, I think, because see, a lot of people confuse meditation. Meditation means कुछ सोचना ही नहीं है. नहीं, meditation ऐसा होता ही नहीं है. हमारा दिमाग जो है, it's like a popcorn machine. Popcorn में कैसे बनते रहते popcorn.
Yeah.
So thoughts are exactly the same. But which thought you take is obviously going to become big in your head. But take that thought, address it, see it, observe it, accept it, and let it pass by. And exactly this is what happens in meditation.
Yeah.
When you're addressing, accepting, and moving ahead. These are 3 stages that will happen.
Yeah, I've like in philosophy and in psychology, they say don't let the emotions control you. You control your emotions.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like, let them come, understand them, and let them go.
Yeah.
They don't take over who you are. Absolutely right. So tell us, Hurssh, you went through a lot of physical training, right? What did intense physical discipline reveal about stored trauma in the body?
Oh wow, like a lot. So I went through a very massive surgery, which was, they found a tumor in my thigh muscle. And that's the reason post my surgery, it was a benign tumor. Post the surgery, I was bedridden for 5 months. So for an athlete, a mental and physical setback to happen. But when the healing started, when everything obviously started getting better while I was in the monastery, that's the reason I went to the Shaolin temple to go get my rehab done. There are certain things that are stored inside of us. We never address them because certain childhood has shaped us in certain environment, which we don't address. We don't know, we only realize after you've grown. So facing certain traumas in my certain hostile traumas in my environment, in my childhood, however, got me to understand when my recovery and healing was happening, there was a lot of fear that I was holding back, that I held back inside of me. Now I'm doing physical training, and then there are certain pains in your body and your joints. Those emotions are so stored, it comes across as physical pain. So there were reasons why my joints were hurting, why my hip was locked, my fear was like, just there,
Trapped in the body.
trapped in the body, and I was not being able to feel like free completely. So apart from physical recovery was one part of it, but internally addressing the traumas to just let out and be is another part of work that I had to do.
Wow.
So it is so I call this as the conscious practice. So, Master Bruce Lee, everybody knows Master Bruce Lee. So he has this double A theory called being alert and active. So alert and active in a fighting situation is different, but alert and active about your life, how you live with your emotions and your physical being in one tune, in one parallel way, is what defines your true human behavior. And that's what is called self-actualization. There's a term called self-actualization, and once you understand self-actualization is when you're in sync with yourself and the supreme power, whatever name you want to call it. Yeah.
Wow. Did stillness ever bring up things that you were not ready to see?
Stillness got me to understand how I need to stand up for myself. I think I was a very timid and a docile boy who didn't have a voice of my own. I was always, controlling my environment.
A pushover?
Yeah. I was never bullied, but coming from a very strict background in the family, in the environment in general, I think stillness got me to address that I have a voice to speak up and stand up for myself. Stillness taught me to have, inner power to let myself out there and put my points across and put my way of living life across, not to live life by somebody else's way of living and thought process. Others can be rigid in your life. Anybody can be rigid कि ऐसे ही जीना है life, ऐसे ही जीना है. But no, आप खुद एक इंसान हो. You have to live life the way you're going to be experiencing. आपका जैसे life में exposure होता रहेगा, that's the way you will approach and respond to things and live the way. So I got to be, through stillness, I got awareness of my voice. That I can stand up for myself and I can speak up and I can live life the way I want to.
That's beautiful, because I think a lot of people in many situations may not even realize that they're silent. They may not even realize that they are living according to everyone else, And it's not just, like you said, you came from a strict environment, so you were doing what was asked of you. There are people who are scared to even have a voice because they're so scared of being disliked. They're so scared of being different. They're so scared of being a rebel. So there are many reasons why somebody can, lose their voice. And it's beautiful to hear that you found yours. And I hope, whoever doesn't have one can find their own. Because I think you can only live life truly for yourself when you have that clarity of voice inside your head, how you want to live it. And like you said, we only have one life.
Right.
And I think we tend to forget that. And we tend to even forget like the limited time we have.
Yeah.
You think like it's always forever. We make plans for next year, 2 years later, in 5 years I'll do this, in 10 years I'll do this. We don't know how we are like so sure of the time ahead. I don't know why we are, because there is no surety of any time ahead. So I guess live it now, understand it now, make the change now. I think is the only message one can give.
Yeah.
Is silence always healing, or can it amplify unresolved issues?
So when unresolved issues come up internally, that is a process of healing. Because you are being brought something which was not addressed, whatever inner battles, inner demons, anything that's coming across, all the unresolved issues, it's coming to your conscious awareness. 3 layers again when we talk about, conscious, subconscious, unconscious, right? So from unconscious state, which is stored as a deep memory, whether it can be any kind of trauma, it can be fear, it can be any kind of really big setback that you faced as a childhood, in your childhood or any point of time in your life. When that starts being addressed and coming forward to your subconscious and then your conscious mind, that is the process of healing that begins. And I personally feel that when you're addressing those unresolved traumas, once you're having to face them face to face, when you're sitting with that thought face to face, is where your conscious mind takes over what you want to do out of it with that trauma. Whether you want that trauma to stay within you, or you want to address it and let it pass by. So I feel that stillness really, really makes you address your unresolved trauma. And that is the path and step towards healing.
Have you ever had anybody studying with you or from you that you saw a world of a change that you never thought would happen?
So I work with a lot of doctors who handle cancer patients, and there's this lady who was battling stage 2 breast cancer. She had a small lump around her region on the point where her shoulder and her chest are meeting. So when I started acquainting to her about not the physical practice, because we attach physical practice like Tai Chi, Qigong for making people understand movement and breath work. But there is something called as mental practice as well. So my Shifu gave me a very important message that whatever you do, Harsh, in life, train your mind and body parallel. So when I started addressing certain mental practices to her, we also spoke initially about how repetition really, really helps you, right? But that repetition does not mean it's only physical practice and muscle memory being accumulated. We work on cellular memory. So when you're working on cellular memory to heal something, to address something, where she actually could have obviously her range of motion, and then a lot of accumulation of the blood which was there started flowing and like releasing out, and that's where she felt a lot of healing. And the doctor had given her a certain amount of time. Obviously our practice and my practice that I made her do definitely amplified with what treatment the doctor was already giving her. So that is one success story, that I got to feel that she got her range of motion, she got to release a certain amount of stored trauma which was internally blocked because of fear, and made her feel more liberated, and no matter how vulnerable she was, she got to be a opposite person where she became extremely happy and extremely like, okay, this is my life, I'm accepting it the way it is, I accept my healing and I'm going ahead and I have nothing to fear. And touch wood, everything is gone back in reverse for her.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah. So the doctors really helped her a lot, and I could add to that practice with her mental and physical practice at the same time. So that was really, really a very happy. I'm still in touch with her, and and she still practices sometimes. Whenever she gets time, she does practice with us.
According to you, Harsh, what does real inner freedom look like when life is still messy? Something is not working out. Nothing is working out for somebody. How can they have real inner freedom in that situation?
So for me, coming back from a monk life to a city life, people ask me, people to leave city life and go to the monk life, the monastery. But I've done the opposite now. So when you are situated and stationed in a mess, whether you call it the concrete jungle, whether you call it any kind of mess in life, right? I think the true inner freedom only comes with true awareness of yourself. When you're living a very conscious life, a very not focused and strict and disciplined, no, it does not require all of that. Yes, there are certain parameters that you set for your health and your wellness. Whatever it may be, any practice, आप कोई भी practice करो, भले आप योगा करो, भले ही आप जिम जाओ या कुछ भी करो, आप मार्शल आर्ट्स भी करो, tai chi, जो भी करना है करिए, कोई बात नहीं. But you're living life with complete awareness is where inner freedom really comes.
But very tough situations can shake that sometimes. Let's say I have certain amount of understanding, okay, of myself. I've reached that point where I have developed certain understanding of who I am, the way I react, why I react certain ways. I have changed. I've thought about it, read about it. But sometimes situations arise where nothing is working out, and it can lead to frustration. It can lead to different reactions which you suddenly feel like it wasn't you. So I'm just saying, for people, sometimes life can be really messy, and it's very hard to still have that real understanding of yourself and that inner freedom. You might actually succumb. How in that situation, what you're saying, like stick to discipline, stick to all of that, that is when life is good. But when life gets very messy, let's talk about somebody who's 19, who suddenly loses a parent. doesn't have any financial backing, has a 10-year-old sibling to look after, has toxic grandparents who are looking to take everything the parents had left behind. I'm just saying, sometimes life can be very messy for people.
Definitely.
At that point, that 19-year-old boy would not be looking for inner real freedom. How does a person at that point think of stillness or think of higher power, or how do you really get that calmness within you?
I personally don't feel that you have to be extremely disciplined and you have to be very structured and be like, okay, life is good, life is jolly, amazing. Like you gave a very nice example where somebody is going through a very massive
Tough time.
tough time where you lose a parent. I think that's one of the biggest thing
Yeah.
that can happen to anyone. Losing a parent, losing your loved ones, uh, certain things taken away, financial situations. Since we all are, living life to feed ourselves in life and take care of our loved ones.
Survival.
Survival, basic. Being conscious is obviously just one side of it, but I personally see it more like purpose. You have to find your purpose, and how do you do that is where when the life stakes are very high, you know what is the mode of serving that stake. I think that's something which really is the resort for anyone in that particular situation. So when you have to take care of your sister, when you have to take care of her education, you have to pay her fees, you have to take care of your livelihood, you have to pay your rent. There's so many XYZ situation that you'll have to do, but आपको आपका purpose से आगे बढ़ना है, जो भी करना है आपको. It can shake you, it can make you feel really bad, sad, everything broken. But ऐसे नहीं कि बस ऊपर वाले का नाम लेके आगे बढ़ो लाइफ में, ऐसे नहीं होता है. That is just one angle to it. But you have to pick yourself up because life में कोई नहीं आने वाला है आपके पास आपको उठाने के लिए. कोई नहीं आने वाला है. You versus you is the situation of life. So how you pick yourself up in any situation, how you take care of yourself and how you align your purpose of what the stakes are high and how you serve that stake is what will make you come out of it. अगर मेरी situation tough है financially, I have to go and find a job. That's my purpose. I need to feed myself. I need to go and find a job to pay for my food, to pay for the education of my sister. So when the stakes of life become really high, is where you will actually understand what your purpose is and how you can fulfill that stake that you're going to be addressing and taking care of.
So, you mentioned how mostly it's like people go from the real world, this messy world, to the monastery life, and you did completely opposite, right? You went there and you came back to this, which I don't think a lot of people end up doing or talking about. Tell me, what shocked you the most when you re-entered the modern world?
Everything. Oh God, I still remember that first day when I came out of the temple and I got to see a very big city. I came back to India. Definitely it has been a very big and a quite amazing journey being adopted as India's first Shaolin warrior monk, living in a monastery and then monastic life, coming back into the city by gaining those really high values, experience, education, wisdom from all my Shifu's masters. What really, obviously there was a massive culture shock, whether it's India or whether I was in the US. I did get some time in 2 years after the temple to go and serve the North America Shaolin Cultural Center and work with the Jackie Chan stunt team. I think culture shock was something which was really big. But I felt like genuinely like nobody understood me, and one of my elder monk brothers told me that, Harsh, you're leaving the monastery. I'm giving you one advice. Nobody will understand you, nobody will get you, and don't set those expectations. He told me very clearly. He's like, just be prepped, because he knew I'm emotional as a person, I'm sensitive as a person. So he told me that just be careful, don't expect anything, and don't be disappointed, because this world out there is going to be very different for you. And when I came back to this, obviously I got to, put world to his words. But everybody was obviously in a rush. Everybody was out there to, do something for their life, make something out of their life. And it was just like a total chaos. So everybody's energy was jumbled and everyone's nice. Like, family is nice, friends are nice, good to connect back with everyone. But I think the biggest thing that I got to see was like this whole culture shock of just like, oh wow, this is what's happening. People are like just doing this, doing that. How can I still be my own true self in this situation? I started thinking of those things that okay, I need to be like this, I need to be like this. But
Yeah,
even
because you came from calm to chaotic.
yeah,
And then you operate completely differently as human, right? When you're in a
right.
calm situation, when you're a chaotic situation. So that
Right.
must be a huge shift for you.
Right, and seeing different, different people from different sides of the world. With some can be really nice, some can be really fake, someone can be really like overbearing, someone can be really authoritative and like dominating. So I saw very different people. Some can't accept you at all. I think my majority of the ratio of thing was that people could not accept me who I became. I became
Yeah.
from the temple and I came, and that's where I had lost a lot of people, which is fine.
I think growth does that.
Yeah, growth definitely does that, and. So for me, it was definitely a very big culture shock to see how people are in Los Angeles, how people are in Mumbai city, um, and trying to maintain my base of how my monastic journey has been there for me. Yeah.
Harsh, did you feel that there were any patterns that you noticed that were trying to reclaim you when you came back that you had to kind of push away?
Definitely, I think every day it was a struggle and a fight every day, from basis of nutrition, from basis of social life, from basis of ideologies. I don't personally believe that you have to find balance in life. I don't. Everyone's like, "Arey, once in a while is fine." Like how people say, "Kabhi meetha kha liya." Arey, once in a while is fine. ठीक है, okay. Arey, once in a while late night is fine. Arey, once in a while have a drink, it's fine. Never had alcohol, but still, like people just kept on like saying this once in a while. इतना every day सुनता गया मैंने once in a while, once in a while. I'm like, "Arey, it's okay. Find the balance. Arey, now to you're in a city, so you can become a city boy again." But I was like, no, like, again, the whole test came where I was not succumbing to this whole people, whether it's my family, my friends, everyone. So this is something that I started observing that, like that whole people living that mundane life, approaching things in a very, very simple way, very typical, whether you want to call it mediocre or you want to call it very stereotypical way.
Yeah, stereotypical way.
It was just not like blending in with me and my ethos and my value system of life, because
Yeah.
that is like a non-negotiable for me. So I started observing these things, and then I had to obviously say subtly, I had to say no. Where certain places I had to like stand up like, hey, I just said like I don't want it, I don't do it. So they did feel bad, but my intent was not for them to feel bad. My intent was to serve myself, because I need to hold my value system within me wherever I am. I
Yeah,
don't
but
need.
it can be taken as you not wanting to blend in. It can be taken as
Yeah.
you not wanting to fit in. It can be taken
Yeah.
as you not wanting to adjust. It can be taken
Yeah.
as you not wanting to be a part of
Yeah.
something. But I don't think anyone really understands it's for you and your discipline. Like people don't understand
People
that.
understand. Yeah, I think
Everything is taken very personally. Your
personally.
choice of being fit is taken personally. Why they don't want to eat with us? Why don't you want to come out with us? Why don't
Yeah.
you want to do this with us?
Yeah.
It's not about that, oh, this person's doing this in a disciplined manner for a certain reason. No. You are trying to oppose what you're asking you to do.
Yeah, I mean, people started calling me boring because I don't drink. People started calling me boring because I'm vegetarian. I don't do late nights. I try not to be too much around where people are extremely flamboyant and extremely, glamorous in the way where they're enjoying their social life. That's their choice. I don't say that's bad. It does not suit me.
It
does
doesn't
not.
resonate
I
with
don't.
you.
Yeah, it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't suit me. I don't fit in. So, all those terms and things happen very casually, very naturally. But I didn't. It didn't affect me. I mean, yeah.
Do you miss your monastery life?
I miss it every time I wake up in the morning. I think I'm like, where have I come? No, but I definitely do miss my Shaolin temple. That's my family. I definitely miss all my brothers, all my monk brothers, my senior monk brothers who are really really taking care of me, my shifus, and everybody who was just there. I miss all of them. I do miss my monk life for sure. But like I said, I found my path of my purpose, and I'm just fulfilling that.
According to you, which inner tools that you learned held up for you and which are the ones that failed?
I would just give two examples of one this and one that. That really worked for me was being an observer, to listen. So one of the major takeaways from the temple was I learned how to listen, to understand, to comprehend. that is still with me. That's never going to die. That's like, the best student is always the best listener. And one thing that really, really didn't work right now in this modern world, because now I've taken my monk life into the entrepreneur side of my life. So I call myself a monkapreneur. But I was very strict and rigid with my practice, and I was not easy to adapt.
To situations.
So that didn't work for me. So not to fit in, to blend in with others, but I think to become a better version of myself, I started.
And also to survive in this modern world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to adapt, to blend in, for myself to evolve and to be relatable to everyone around me, because eventually I'm here and I'm serving and catering to the people around me. So I have to serve them in the way they understand, not in the language that I studied in the temple. So that's something that didn't work. My rigidity didn't work for me. My listening practice, my observing practice works for me.
So if whenever you were to get married and have kids and have a family, would you ever send them to this practice?
Yes, so when I got out of the temple, we were given two options: whether you want to be a monk and continue being a monk, or you want to choose the family life, the grahasti, how we say. So for me, I think I have chosen the latter one, that I definitely do want to, be a grahasti, have a family. Would love to do that because I think since understanding the whole energy of yin and yang philosophy, the masculine and feminine, and in order to fulfill the meaning of life and fulfill the meaning of my purpose, everything of my practice, what has got me awareness, total awareness, is where this is something which is required. This is something which I have to do, and I want to do, and I need to do it. So out of love, out of care, and very grateful to, I do have a partner, so I'm very grateful for her to support me in my journey and my mission and my cause that I'm doing.
So would you ever send your kids to the Shaolin temple?
Yes, definitely. I would send them, because Shaolin Temple is my second home. So they'll be just, going to the second home to train and experience life. I went at a very, not such a young age, but people go there at the age of 3, 4, 5.
Wow.
So I would definitely want them to have that kind of, understanding and development within them, with their spiritual and physical training and mental training. And there's also academic training over there. A lot of people don't know this. Myself had an academic training. I did my master's in ancient Buddhist philosophy and master's in traditional Chinese medicine. So there is a lot of academic training, and there's a lot of physical, mental, spiritual training. So I would love for my children to go there and get that experience.
Yeah, and as young as possible, because when they
Yeah.
shape out like that, they wouldn't have the traumas to heal.
Yeah.
They would start healed.
Start healed, yeah.
Amazing. So tell me, my last closing question would be, if someone is chasing discipline, silence, or spirituality to fix themselves, what should they be honest about first?
I think the first thing that they need to be honest about is to face themselves, of whoever they are. Because once they are ready to face themselves, they will be ready to unlearn what they have learned. So my master always says, my Shifu always says, whatever you study, whatever you approach you take towards going into anything, whether you want to, like I've come and I'm speaking to you, you're sharing so much stuff with me which I'm not aware about. So I came with an empty cup to learn. So wherever you go with an empty cup and fill it drop by drop. So face yourself. Once you face yourself, know who you are in that particular moment. Once you know that, and then you unlearn whatever you've learned, and just start from not even zero. I think start from minus, and cultivating your discipline, cultivating your spiritual practice, cultivating your XYZ, whatever takes you and makes you feel better. But meditation, breath work, any form of movement is something which will obviously keep you aligned, because human body was not it's not made just to rest. It's made to move. We are karma yogis. We are humans who are supposed to be working. And we are spiritual beings, so internally connected, but physically in motion is the way forward, I think.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Harsh, for coming today and having this really amazing conversation. And I hope everyone got the right takeaways from this as I did.
Thank you so much for having me. And it was really nice for you to invite me and your team here. And I felt really warm and very hospitable. So thank you again, and good luck. What inner patterns survive discipline, stillness, and spiritual practice? Namaste, everyone. My name is Hurssh Verma, India's first Shaolin warrior monk, founder, a global wellness advisor. In this conversation, we spoke about fighting inner demons, how you address spiritual practice, how you handle your emotions, how a monk mentality is being addressed in a modern city, and many more things that follow your spiritual practice and understanding yourself. So please watch this podcast on the Human Thread on all streaming platforms. Thank you.